today let's talk about preparing for your talks. I am in a hotel room in Montenegro and getting ready to prep for the AI for Marketers talk that I do. There's a few things that are always helpful. One, to the extent that you can, have the gear that you're going to be presenting with. So I have my own clicker, I bring my own clicker. I have, you can probably see it back there, it's a bag essentially filled with wires, which makes me incredibly popular with airport security. And what you want to do is have your presentation up on your laptop and click through it. Essentially do a dry run. I do it in two stages. The first stage is I will run through just the slides without any narration and in full screen mode. And if I can't remember what a slide is, I know I just need to get rid of it. Because that happens sometimes. If your slides are well constructed, they should have very, very few words on them and a whole bunch of images. Because what you don't want people doing is you don't want people reading what's on the screen while trying to listen to you. That's two different language streams, and our brains don't work like that. Our brains work best with images or music that process more on the non-verbal side of the brain, and then one language stream. So if people are reading, then you should not be talking. And if you're talking, then people should not be reading. The exception is obviously if you're using one or two words, maybe a phrase on the slides. So you go through, you just click through all your slides and the first time through and say, okay, well, here's this slide. Do I remember what the slide is? Why is there a picture of a bottle of alcohol there? Whatever. And then the second time through, you run the text. You run the text of your talk. And it depends on how many times you've given the talk, how thorough you need to do this. If you have done this talk a whole bunch of times, a whole bunch is 10 or more, then just summarize the high points. This slide I'm talking about this slide I'm talking about this. This is a picture of a blender. We're talking about exploratory data analysis. This is a picture of the inside of the refrigerator. This is a slide that talks about how quickly or how often you should run exploratory data analysis and so on and so forth. If it's a new talk, you should do the full narration as if you were delivering it on stage, because you want to make sure that transitions in particular you smooth out. Transitions the hardest part to smooth out, where you've got one slide then another slide, and making a logical segue without having to rely on the slides is important. One of the things that should be the case with your presentation is if you lost all the AV, right? The projector didn't work, the internet was down, whatever. Fire alarm went off and you're all standing outside the parking lot. You should be able to deliver your talk as is without slides. And you should still have enough to say. And even if the audience can't see your slides, you should be able to cover the material well enough that they get something out of it. Now, they may not see a picture of a refrigerator, but you would say, like the contents of your refrigerator, you need to do exploratory data analysis as often as you change recipes. So if you just made bread yesterday and your ingredients were good yesterday, you can do a cursory check today and not have to, carefully inventory everything. I talked about that. You can't see the slides. My laptop's over here. But just hearing the description makes sense. So that's an important point when you're doing rehearsals. You want to make sure that you've got material that you can remember and that you can tell stories from. Where people run into trouble a lot, I know where I run into trouble a lot, is when you don't have a story for a slide, when it's just a data point or something. And that's a sign that you need to construct some kind of narrative around that slide so that you have the ability to remember it yourself, right? That's what that's about. So you do that, and then if you're trying to work on certain types of stage motion, your room is a great place to practice that. If you are doing blocking, for example, where you're going to be in specific places on specific slides. You practice that in your room. So there was a talk I used to do about becoming a data-driven company, and on the slide was 5 different stages. And what I would do is I would start at one side of the room, and then literally walk across the stage with each of the stages of that, so that my motion was in sync with the evolution. So if you're doing that in the talk, your room, wherever you're doing your prep work, is a great place to practice it. If you're trying to curtail certain behaviors on stage, again, your room is a great place to do that. So one tip I got from my friend Laura Gassner-Otting was, if you are a nervous pacer and you're pacing around the stage a lot, which can be distracting, hotel room chair, and you deliver your talk standing on the chair so that you can't pace, right? You'll fall off. You are delivering the talk just as is, and you can turn and look at the audience in different ways, but you can't move around because, again, you'll fall off the chair. And especially with narrow stages or with stages where you have confined movement because of sight lines and things, you may not want to be walking the stage. You may want to plant yourself in one spot and talk things through. This is especially true at events where there's a lot of stuff on the stage. They've done some really cool decor and stuff. If you can get a pre-walkthrough of the event beforehand, like if you can get here the day before and do a tech check out the stage, check out the room, that will help govern what it is that you're going to do on stage, right? If you see there's some really big sightline issues, there's 3 massive columns in the audience, and if you move around a lot, people are going to miss you if you could stay in one spot. Or if you know there's a videographer working and you want to stay in shot, you would probably not want to walk as much or as quickly. If you're setting up your own camera, which is what I do a lot, I have my own cameras and I put them on the podium and things, you definitely want to check your sight lines in advance for your camera and then make a mental note where you can and can't walk. And so all that comes as part of the prep work, typically, again, the day before the event or the day of, because you should be able to modify your behavior based on what you know to be true. Other than that, that's what goes in, the main stuff that goes into rehearsal. Rehearsal really is just going through and making sure that you know what's going to be on the slides, right? You know what's going to be there. You know how much time you have, and ideally you've crafted your slides so that you're timed to that for whatever it is. If it's 45 minutes of talk and 15 minutes of Q&A, or 40-20, you do your rehearsal and you see what your timing is. You can flex a lot. You can flex 5 or even 10 minutes in each direction, depending on how you feel on any given day. Right? If you are super nervous, you will talk fast, and your presentation may end 5 minutes before you intended to. So another thing that can help is having mental checkpoints. If your talk is something that's divided into sections, you might even want to have a timer running that lets you know, I'm at section 2, I should be at section 2 in 10 minutes. It's 8 minutes, so I need to slow down. Or I'm at section 2 and it's 13 minutes, I need to not go off the rails as much. Anyway, that's some prep work for getting ready to speak. Wherever it is that you are, any kind of hotel room that you're in, you can do this stuff. You don't have to rewire the room if you don't want to. I usually do just for fun. And if you got questions, drop them in our Slack group.
If you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.